podcast. This is a product lifecycle. What am I saying? Welcome to the AI across the product lifecycle podcast. I'm happy to welcome Christian Stein of Threedy and Max Limper of DGG. Thanks, guys, for showing up today. This is great. I'm looking forward to learning more. Um, we're going to talk about, as usual on this podcast, about AI, but I think in this case, more on how Christian and Max are thinking about AI in the context of 3D than actually using AI and 3D together today. And I'm looking forward to it. So why don't you introduce yourself, Christian?
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Happy to be here. Maybe a little bit of myself and my background. I'm a computer scientist focused on computer graphics software engineering initially. I worked in the games industry at Electronic Arts for some years before working as a freelancer and doing my master's, and then by chance joined the Fraunhofer Institute for Applied Computer Graphics Research in 2012. This is actually when I met Max for the first time. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that as well. For the next years, we have jointly worked on what today at Threedy is our platform called Instant 3D Hub. Went through a long spin-off cycle to get this moved out of Fraunhofer. And now for 5 years, we are with 3D on the road as an independent startup, commercializing the solution and developing it. And happy to talk a lot about the learnings and things we're doing there later on.
Awesome. You guys are actually both in the same city, aren't you?
Yes.
Darmstadt, yeah. How about you, Max?
First of all, thanks, Michael, for having me here. And I'm Max. I'm CEO and co-founder at DGG, creators of the software called Rapid Pipeline. And our software has been around the startup has been around for 7 years now. We're also spin out of the Fraunhofer Institute for Computer Graphics, which is where I met Christian as well in 2012. And we started working together on things like standardizing 3D formats and working on efficient renderers for the web and so on. My focus back then was more on automating pipelines, and that's where I did my PhD also, specifically about geometry processing and optimizing data for rendering. So fast rendering in the browser, in VR, and so on.
Nice.
So yeah, that's my quick background, basically.
Yeah, I think that when I've analyzed the history of CAD and PLM, I've focused on the two Cambridges, right? The UK and Cambridge, Mass, MIT. But I think actually Darmstadt also has a large place in the history of CAD, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know too much about this particular example, but it's just something that comes to my head is Autodesk Fred, the roots of that, I think, are also somewhere with the Fraunhofer IGD that are connected, or the predecessor of that here. There's a long history of computer graphics research. And I think, Christian, you also have some contacts, right? And PostApp and things like that.
Right.
I think in general, the Fraunhofer Institute has roots for now maybe 50 years. I think there was very recently a celebratory event about computer graphics birth in Germany, which is maybe more in the Berlin area, but then important people moving to Darmstadt, building the roots here for a larger team, the Fraunhofer IGD itself, and CRIS, the university group that it was closely collaborating with, and how it extended its reach with different entities across Europe, with the previous head of the institute, Professor Encarnação, who is also a laureate in the computer graphics area. So there's a big history on that, but then I think what was very specific about the Institute and also about the work that Max has been doing there is that for the last 25 years, we have closely worked with industry on how to standardize computer graphics and formats for various use cases, and how, especially with the automotive, where there's a hub in Darmstadt about collaborating on 3D formats, how these joint efforts over the last 20 years have closely influenced how 3D graphics is used in the German automotive industry today.
Yeah, it's just interesting because we don't. It's not the first thing that comes to mind when you think of the history of 3D, but actually, even for PLM, because of course Martin Eigner is one of the grandfather of PDM, so it's cool to think about. That's cool for Germany. I wanted to, our topic is around AI, and I know that you guys said that you're not specifically using AI in your software, but obviously you're thinking about it like everybody else. So I was wondering, my first question is always, we're now into like year 3 of the LLM revolution, right? Ever since OpenAI gave us the original ChatGPT, which looked like a toy, but some of us saw that there was quite a lot of potential there, and now it's taken on a whole nother dimension. How were you guys really bullish on it, or were you guys a bit skeptical back in 2-3 years ago?
Do you want to start, or I can start?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Actually, I always love to tell how I experienced this on a more personal or social level, because let's say my personal network is a lot of computer scientists and a lot of teachers. And when it arrived, it was like huge enthusiasm from the computer scientists about this is going to change everything so fast. And the teachers were shying completely away, like we cannot use it in our personal jobs at all. And then 1.5 years, 2 years later, you have quite the opposite situation, because the computer scientists suddenly got a lot of hesitation about, is it really reliable? How much can we rely on it in our work? While the teachers have been the opposite now. And they were like, hey, we're doing it every day. We are changing completely how we work with our students with this. So I guess from a company perspective, we have been initially a little bit shying away, that we started to see how our internal processes could be optimized, how to use the technology, let's say, to accelerate daily work, be more efficient. But at the same time, at our customers, we didn't really see them in the engineering and IT space, where we are mostly active, really starting to work with it and really getting things into a productive situation. But now I think this has changed over the last maybe 9 months, that more regularly you get in touch with AI initiatives, and there are more concrete integration topics for us. And now I think over the last month, it has really strongly influenced our roadmap. And we are happy to talk about the details later on, what we're doing there.
Awesome. So it's more of in your case, it's more of a pull than a push. In other words, you're waiting for the industry to pull you in and say, we really need it. That's interesting. How about you, Max? Did you have the same thing with Rapid Pipeline?
Yeah, good question. I mean, when it first came up, I wouldn't say skeptical. I mean, there are many people who are like extremely hyped, and I think that's even like a small industry in itself. Is like these people who post it every week, like
the AI bros.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, like it's like this pattern that you can probably write with an AI now. It's like, what happened last week in AI is wild. And then pointer down, right? It's like pure engagement bait, right? And, this is like where I tend to throw up if I read too much of this. I don't even click it, because like whatever, right? So this, like as an engineer, this really turns me off. But then of course, but I don't know if that's skepticism, right? I mean, if you're not buying like overhyped stuff, is that already skepticism, or is that just being a normal, rational person, right?
I think it's more rational, but right, that's just me.
so that's taken away. I mean, I found it quite interesting. There has been deep learning in computer graphics already for like much longer time, right? Like 10 years ago, I think around 10 years ago, there were a lot of deep learning papers popping up in SIGGRAPH, like the major conference where people publish technical papers in computer graphics. And I think outside the computer graphics community, no one noticed that, right? And then I think the big AI hype is just, hey, ChatGPT, like people can have the feeling that they can talk to something, and that something is smart, right? Like I had this moment where I was like, oh, that's actually kind of cool, where I asked it to write a poem about a character from an animated show when we were sitting in around like at New Year's Eve somewhere. It was writing it, and it was actually fitting that character, right? And that's kind of funny. So when you have these moments, then you start thinking about what could this do, right? But at the same time, my engineering brain wants to really know what are the limitations. How does it do that? Can I make it? It's like a bit of a troll that is in every engineer also, right? Can I make it do something stupid and expose? And it's like when you start asking it, I don't know, give me a word that has 2 times the letter E and is whatever 9 letters long, or solve a Sudoku or whatever, and it just explodes, right? Just cannot do it. Or it says, yeah, like 2 and 2, what is that? And it says it's 4. And said that's wrong, and I'd say, oh, I apologize, it's 5. Right? So that's the fun stuff then. But I think it's really interesting how AI is like what we call AI now, mostly, right? It's like LLMs and anything like that is very fuzzy. And that fuzziness can be extremely powerful, right? I mean, we have our algorithms and we like to solve very specific, well-defined problems with an algorithm that gives you an optimal solution. And this is really what we have been also doing with Rapid Pipeline usually, right? I have an input, I have a desired spec for the output, and our software produces that, and boom. But sometimes I have more fuzzy like requirements, and that's where AI can really shine, right? Because that's where you usually need a human in the loop, and we can talk about that later, I guess. I don't want to go too deep into a rabbit hole, but I think that it's basically, like in a nutshell, AI allows us to do things that were previously not possible, but many people don't understand, especially in the beginning, what these things are, and think it can do everything or nothing. But like it's really interesting how we as a community all figure out where AI has its place already now and where it might have its place in the future. And the answer to that is not trivial, and that's why right? Like you cannot just say all the algorithms are going to replace by AI. That's complete.
Not happening. But so let's talk more specifically, because both of you guys are developers, and of course, some of the hype of the AI bros has been on vibe coding and, oh, you can build your whole app without actually coding. Well, I think we all agree that's absolutely not the case. That you still have a need for programmers for the details and things like that. But how are you using AI from a developer point of view at Threedy to improve or to do the scaffolding or maybe brainstorming? How are you using AI on a daily basis as a developer? Or how are your developers using it at Threedy?
Maybe I give a few minutes background on what we're actually building.
Yeah, that's fine.
The idea of our software is this like add-on harmonization layer that customers put on top of their data management system, PDM, PLM, on their 3D data formats, and we can harmonize across all of that and provide them with APIs to pull in certain kinds of computation by just pointing towards data using linked data standards. And with that, over the years now in the company, we have grown in certain customers along the product lifecycle or across departments in a way that we kind of take care of the 3D part in their digital thread. So different departments being capable of actually talking about the same data, because not everyone stores and manages their own truths, but they're kind of agreeing with a standardized namespace and addressing scheme about how data is addressed, and then they can just pull it into any kind of typically web-based application. And so at the same time, for us, I think it's been always a challenge, like who's the persona we're selling to and who are the people working with the platform, because initially, obviously, you have to solve a certain use case and do a vertical integration so that things are up and running. But afterwards, the most important persona maybe is the product owner or the developer that uses our APIs to integrate the solution in any kind of workflow where 3D data can be beneficial, more or less. And now if we look internally how we've been working with AI, I think initially we really solved one of the core problems regarding information management in the company that we had with this history of 15 years almost now developing this technology, and people coming in at different points in time, people from the Fraunhofer time, new developers. Access to the information that was in the head of the people or that was stored in some internal system was already difficult. And there we saw that this can really be helpful to get people up to speed more quickly. And then we had a lot of initial initiatives about using it in testing, in automating certain tasks in the development process, in writing PRDs, for example. So different people, different departments really building their own tooling based on AI to accelerate what they're doing in the daily work. And then what you mentioned, obviously, over the last 6 months, you can just vibe code anything so quickly. And for us, this is a huge opportunity on one side to move forward building MVPs very quickly, to have something when we approach this initial use case with a new customer, for example, that you can go through almost finished version of a vibe coded app with some 3D context integrated, where it seems like the solution is already there, and you can, by that, give a really good feeling to the customer about how the solution is going to look at the end, while at the same time you still have to do the hard work afterwards to implement it in a sustainable way. But at the same time, I think one of the major benefits once you have integrated our software is that if you consider the whole technology stack of an industrial 3D application that's built with our technology, then we can kind of cover 95% maybe of the complexity with a standard product and all the systems that run under it. So, and where the AI is really strong because it's been trained on the open internet more or less, is exactly this HTML5 JavaScript application layer that people then use to build their applications. So for us, we obviously also see a chance to what we call customized for the individual person, for the individual workflow applications, that we can streamline the process of developing these tools, which in the past have been kind of tedious because you have to find a development team internally or at the customer. You need a product owner. You need to build an infrastructure to serve the application, to connect it to all the different data backends. So if you can automate so many things on that, and then you use LLMs on top to really quickly generate and accelerate the implementation of just the user front ends, I think it's going to, in the next years, we will see that people will be able to pull out the user interface on demand for the individual tasks they are doing. Vision maybe that we already had 10 years ago, that it's going to be about about a swarm of minimal applications that just provide you with the individual interactions instead of a monolithic jack of all trades application that is rolled out to many users. I think there will be a shift, and this is where we see a real opportunity with our approach.
Interesting. Is that about, Max, do you have a different perspective?
I mean, from our company's point of view, maybe slightly different focus here and there, but in general, I would echo like everything that Christian said. I think like especially this idea of basically shortening that cycle from an idea to a mock-up or even a functional UI for something very specific. I think that already works very well, right? And I mean, it's funny, like you could say AI is basically helping you to, like search and put together pieces what developers would do manually before by just browsing Stack Overflow. Now we all know AI probably scraped Stack Overflow and a zillion other sites, and no matter if that was all legal or not, but what they offer now is just, it's not going to go away anymore, right? It's like people are just using it to basically have a shortcut there, and it works like amazingly well, right? It's like when I use a library, like usually developers use a lot of libraries, right?
Of course,
I think the times where you like, I don't see this at least a lot, that people are like, let's say I'm programming a UI with Qt, and I'm the #1 Qt expert in my company, and I'm only doing Qt every day. Maybe I will be fast enough to type things by hand and they will magically appear, but I have to be a very, very good developer and I have to only do this all the time. And there's no use in me knowing as a developer like all their APIs and all the functions and their signatures. But if I just say, okay, I want an application that looks roundabout like this, and I can give it a picture and it creates me a UI, and then I can just take it from there. I mean, AI even adds a lot of comments usually, right? And like it gives a lot of context. It's not even like dirty code or anything. It's usually quite readable. And then you can just go over it and tweak it. And I think it's just changing the role of the developer a bit. It's not replacing the developer, right? I mean, that's also stupid. It's more like facilitating it. And it's the same for like if you're very average or below average, then maybe you're in trouble, but that's for everyone. Like the below average writers are going to have a hard time. But if you're a good writer, then AI is not going to like replace what you do, right? But maybe it helps you be faster and get to an initial state faster. And I think that's the same for every developer. And for us, we have this deep SDK-like software, right? Like it's a command line tool usually what people use. But anyway, it's very technical. We're building interfaces for that. And their AI can help us to iterate quicker. And it can also help our clients to iterate quicker on that, right? So I think that's very similar to what Christian said.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I think for us, it's a lot of the work to get things up and running is often mapping functionality that has to be coded. So there are fixed structures from systems, and somehow you have to map them to each other so that data can flow, that connectivity between data sources is established, for example. And this is exactly where we see a huge acceleration, because you can, get rid of a lot of the hallucination problems if the guardrails are fixed enough. And if you have very hard standards specified on each side, AI can do a really good job in just mapping them dynamically. And for example, an important integration for us often is with knowledge graph systems that are at the customer already spanning as an umbrella across different systems, pulling out information, generating higher level information mappings. And now enabling 3D data in this environment often comes down to being able dynamically to build this linkage and pull in information. And this is, again, the accelerator that we see at customers, where the knowledge graphs are becoming a standardized interface to build LLM-based AIs on top, and where we can, again, then deliver the integration piece to enable 3D data in these applications and enable the LLMs to control information flows or pull in computation on the 3D data. And this is, for us, again, very, very interesting topic for current co-innovation topic with customers. On one side, to pull in information that they feed into AI models in general, but then also for this idea of live interaction with your 3D data. And there you mentioned this from push to pull also a little bit. I think the overall way how functionality is made available to applications will change in the way that before you had to kind of push it through to the end user, and you needed to get his verification that what you build actually works for him. That's like he expected. And it's a very tedious and slow cycle. And with the AI-based integration approaches like MCP now, there's a pulling mechanism now that kind of enables application layer logic to pull in functionality as required. And this is where we also think that the world's completely going to change over the next years, and how all these like agentic application frameworks might in the future be a lot less coupled with specific functionalities in the backend, but instead pull them in as required and connect to other systems as required.
Usually at this point, I ask like how you guys are actually using AI in your programs, and you told me ahead of time you're not specifically today. So why don't we turn the question around and say, like, when we first saw Google, it was just a line on a screen where you type something. You were like, where's the application, right? And there was all this stuff going in the background. When we got ChatGPT, we just got a line that says, ask me a question, and it's all very 2D. And you and I, all three of us we're in the 3D world. We've been there seems to be a disconnect. And how are we going to get AI into 3D world? We were talking before, and also of like, there's no large CAD model of LLM that understands geometry intimately. I mean, Leo AI created a mechanical model, right? So they understand mechanical engineering, but we still haven't got geometry as an LLM. So how do you guys see that evolving? Is that even useful, or do you guys think that that's maybe the next phase for us in the 3D world, that we'll have some kind of a model that'll natively understand geometry, so you can say, well, actually move that fillet over by 2 millimeters and make sure it doesn't intersect this other one, and it'll really be able to do that without me having to move a mouse or type anything. Just what do you guys think? Max, you haven't talked in a while. You want to take a stab at it?
Can always talk. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just from a product perspective. Like I'm not sure if that's a satisfying answer, but my answer is would really depend on the use case. And what you just said is very interesting. Just picking that up, that random example, right? Move that fillet over. I thought about that as well. I mean, for our software, you can do things like, okay, you can teach an AI to understand our JSON schema for the 3D processor, and you can say, remove all invisible parts of this model, and then it would work, right? That's probably useful, especially for first-time users. And if you want to quickly configure a workflow, I can see that on that level. I want to remove all invisible parts. I want to create a model that has a maximum 50K polygons. I want to create UVs, and I want to kick out all parts that are a little detailed smaller than 1 millimeter, and close holes that are smaller than whatever, 5 millimeters. Yeah, and you can write that in one query, and it's much more efficient than typing it in by hand and understanding where all these buttons and switches are and whatever. So I can totally see that. But then when it comes to detailed editing, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, the mouse is also a powerful tool, right? So it's like, is speech always better? Is text always better than a mouse? I guess it depends. When you have like a high-level operation that is easy to describe in 5 sentences, and usually would have a person then finding the right knobs and sliders, I think that is like a very obvious thing that could be facilitated with like a text-based interface. If it comes to the details, and yeah, maybe the fillets would be already on that level. I don't know, right? Like depending on what it is, right?
Well, you have to train the model on parametric modeling in that case, right? And move things around to be able to move them around.
Yeah, I mean, like I can totally see how you could say, I don't know, I have something that has I don't know, 5 holes in the design, and I say, can you make the same thing that looks stylish and symmetrical with 3 holes or whatever? But it's again one of these fuzzy queries.
Right.
Very precise things. I even read this at some point, that someone said like, hey, math is actually a very powerful language, right? And it's very precise. So if you want to say something very precise, right, then sometimes the interfaces that we have are probably the most powerful ones. But then if it's fuzzy, or if it's a very general top-down task, then maybe the text will win, right? That's what I'm thinking, at least.
Well, that's sort of what Intop is doing with implicit design, right? I mean, everything comes down to the math. You can just do your mathematical stuff. But you're nodding there, Christian. You must be in agreement with us.
Yeah, I think we are not so much about, let's say, the actual work of engineer in the CAD, but more about how the data that's generated can be used for other people. So
of course,
that one, I think, on one side, there are like all these different initiatives, if there might be some better representation to do CAD modeling at all. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see if it's rather someone like, we talked a little bit about the TextSoft approach before, about using data as is and generating better fitted representations to feed into language models, or if it's going to be about a different kind of representation in general that might be more suited to that. But it's definitely not where our work is or our experience lies for now. At the same time, I think if we look about this like higher level usage of data, I had a very interesting talk yesterday with someone from Bosch, where I especially if you kind of want to teach AI information about the physical world. I think, at least in their research, there's a very strong understanding that it's going to boil down to a lot of very different and very specific models to do individual tasks. And then maybe the LLMs can be something like the umbrella that translates between them, that like generates how the different submodules are going to be used. But there are like so many questions still to be solved. And then I think at the big player level, people might move towards building new world models, etc. And those probably are then still a few years away before we see the first incarnations. So I think for the very specific tasks at customers right now, it's going to boil down to is there a combination of existing AI capabilities that can be combined to do a very specific task. And then in our experience, this maybe will cover the next maybe 1 to 2 years to really get those up and running and reliable in production. But people are starting to build those now. And there's still a huge way to go, I guess, to build.
Well, that's good news for us as developers, right? That means we still have work for a couple of years before we get obsoleted by an agent. Actually, we do have a question in the chat. That's a good question. Dick K Digital Twins. How did he get that name changed? But Dick K said, "What tools or frameworks do you recommend for developers wanting to start integrating AI with real-time 3D projects?" I mean, is it just Cursor and Windsurf, or is it Hoops? Maybe this new AI Hoops thing. Well, you guys maybe you haven't even thought of it, but I think it's a good question, right?
I guess it's always boiling down to what do you want to achieve. I mean, the question is very generic, and I think if you want to start like training something on cat data, you should always come from the question: what do you want to train? Where's that information? How can I get it out of my data in a reproducible, reliable way? And what's the representation I feed to my model to learn something? If it's about maybe the side where we are more active, if you want to develop an application that kind of interfaces with real-time 3D, I always recommend our software, obviously. It's going to come down to how much of the work is already available as things that people have built that are reliable, and how much do you have to do yourself.
Makes me wonder, like, if the native language would be closer to STEP or closer to Hoops or closer to the actual parametric data. Anyway, I'll let Max. Do you have an answer for that one, or some thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no specific solution for general real-time 3D projects where we can do that. But as Christian said, I guess it depends. So if you are building, let's say, a real-time app based on Babylon.js, right, in the browser, that's something that's very popular. And like, this is just coming from this more lightweight real-time site right now. And you know exactly what you want to visualize, and you want to, have some clickable hotspots or whatever. And it's very static, and it's this one thing that you want to do for, a trade show or whatever. You can probably do that with any generic AI that can do coding and has basically seen the Babylon.js docs and can put something together. And then if you want to do that with a CAD model and you want to have more meaningful interactions, and I think what Christian and team are building within Instant 3D Hub has these web components. So if the AI can read that, the docs for that, then it can also put those together and can say, okay, can I have something where I can have like clickable CAD lines and like distance measurements and all these cool things that Instant 3D Hub allows. And what we can do is basically the data prep part if you want to generate LODs or whatever. But I guess it's really depending on what you want to do, right? And what building blocks do you want to drive? And the driver of that is probably a generic AI, I suppose.
So I wasn't sure if it was just the name of the guy, Digital Twin, or was it about because,
I think he just added it after his last initial.
Okay. Because I think, in our world, obviously, I first need 20 minutes to discuss what the Digital Twin is, but there's often this, in our opinion, weird understanding that whatever 3D data set you kind of clamp together in a game engine somewhere is now a digital twin. And our opinion is that the digital twin is all about managing, understanding your data, building a layer where you have interconnected information that represents your digital twin, and then the instantiation of a product that you have built, obviously, and all the data that's connected to it along the life cycle. That at the end, it's all about the data that you're managing and how easily you can make it available and connect it with each other. And then viewing, visualizing it, it's just a form of consuming this data layer that you have to build.
I wonder if the question could also be oriented towards the industrial metaverse, though. Like I'm doing this series of articles right now, and last week I talked about co-pilots, and this week I talked about agentic AI, and next week I'm going to talk about industrial metaverse. And if you think about real-time 3D, I'm thinking more about on the NVIDIA Omniverse platform. I take my 3D model and I put it in this virtual reality where I can manipulate it and figure out where the weak areas are, and then I can put that data that I learn back into the PDM and to the CAD system, and then iterate to improve my model without actually having to build any kind of prototyping or anything. I think that's an interesting place where developers should work. If you learn OpenUSD and you start working on that could be an interesting area. I don't know if that coincides with what you guys are working on or anything.
I can maybe to state one of the customers we are working with. They're using Omniverse currently they call it simulation tool for experts. And okay. I think there's a huge complexity in bringing your data into Omniverse in general and making sure that the information that you need can be reflected in the OpenUSD standard. I mean, it's a great initiative. A lot of things are being harmonized, and it enables people really to get this information from different sources. But at the end, it's a format-based standardization. And so the complexity is in automating that. So considering the automotives again, if you're talking about getting your factory, your robots, your production data of your car for a given point in time in a specific facility together dynamically, so you can really run any kind of simulations in Omniverse on that. I think people are still having big challenges of achieving that truth of data at all in that environment. And then once you have run your simulation and the results you generated, you have to transfer it back to the other systems again. So this closed loop of information is really something still to be solved. And while I think there's obviously a lot of capabilities and so many interesting work done, at this point, I don't see that many real productive systems built on Omniverse yet. There's maybe just as with AI, there's more and more touch points, and people are starting to maybe generate value from it, but it's also very, very early in the beginning. And
I agree. That's why I called it the stage 3 AI. You know what I mean? After co-pilots and agentic, even if the AR VR stuff, we've been doing it for a while, but really integrating that with the 3D and not just as a funny way of telling people instructions over the internet. No, actually use the third screw there on the left. No, move your hand. Where you're actually using the 3D in real time. Do you have any thoughts on that, Max?
I mean, I would. I think Christian is already thinking about this probably. So I'll just say it for him. They had an amazing project that is publicly available as a case study with BMW, where they have this thing called 3D concept. If you haven't heard about it, check it out. So this is actually doing this already for some years. It doesn't require Omniverse or anything. It's just instant 3D Hub, and people at BMW, I think. Christian, how many were that at the time of the case study?
Several thousand users on a daily basis.
Wow.
That's what I got, right? So we have several thousand users interacting on real CAD data and communicating about it and using that as a source of truth and doing that interactively. And Christian and team have an integration with MS Teams and things like that. So they're really where the users are. With Omniverse, Yeah, I mean, I could talk more about USD and how that could be connected with AI.
Sure, it's interesting. Yeah, I'd like to know about that.
Yeah, but I think maybe just to add a side note here on Omniverse, like we are working with like USD conversions for Omniverse for clients and so on, and like it's a platform that can do certain things, but NVIDIA is not acting as a solution provider there, right? I mean, they're not doing that. You can work with Accenture or someone or who then does the actual solution building. But yeah, I think you have to put in a lot of work to achieve something similar for what, like, comparable to, let's say, what Instance 3D Hub does with this 3D Concepts app. If you want to have really a domain-specific problem solved, right? I think there's no way around, like, yeah, building something specific. And then for the USD side of things, I think just wanted to add like one thing that people often just see it as a file format, but it's actually more, right? It's a runtime also. And if you embrace it as a runtime, then you can do a bit more and
Interesting.
also programming it that way, right? It's basically like a scene graph with many cool additional features, and you can have like scenes interlinking, and you have all these concepts for like meshes and primitives and stages and whatnot. Yeah, and I think that's also interesting potential, but it's kind of disconnected from Omniverse per se. It's like Omniverse is USD based, but you can also program USD outside Omniverse.
Right. Well, I was just in the article that it's a spoiler for next week, but you basically, the three big vendors have already committed to being able to export that format, and then Siemens and PTC have signed deals with NVIDIA to integrate to the Omniverse. That's really cool.
I mean, Siemens is embracing this for maybe 2.5 years now, and at the end, they give you technology on how to pull data from Teamcenter and generate USDs from it, and you can automate your flow. But the question then is again, how much time does it take? Because
Right.
I mean, you mentioned the metaverse initially, and for us, while it's probably a burn term still, at the end, it's a lot about these like XR spatial computing use cases that we see, for example, in the production at customers, where it's all about having the data as you need it, because you want to replace
Of course, yeah.
manuals, you want to project information on your physical objects, so you can support working steps where before you had a lot of plastic tooling and stuff. So I'm not sure if these two giants, just by giving you a way on how to convert between systems, are actually solving the problem of making data accessible.
Oh, no. I think that you're right. It's a separate issue, and I think we'll talk about that in the last question. But before we get to that one, I wanted to know. So we've talked about 22, 23 when the LLMs came out, and how you guys, it was more of a pull than a push, but you guys were both enthusiastic with a little bit of skepticism, right? If I characterize. Now we're in almost 2026, right? We've been through the LLMs and then the agents, and now we're looking at MCPs, and everything is just going a bit nuts. You've got the crazy financial juggling between OpenAI and Oracle, and nobody really knows where where that's going to go. Are you guys still bullish on it? Do you guys think that there could be a bubble problem, like we had back in 2007 with the subprimes, and it's just going to I think AI is here to stay, and it's going to be of massive influence to us as engineers for a long time. Do you guys also feel that? I mean, where do you get? What's your opinion on it going forward, as of now in late 2025? Max?
All right, yeah, I'll try to keep it short. I mean, I think there's clearly a bubble, right, in terms of valuations. And I don't know, like the circular deals between NVIDIA and Oracle and OpenAI, that's all crazy, right? And the whole OpenAI promise. I mean, I don't know if many people care what I think, but I dare to put my word out and say like that this is not going to fly like their projections with because many people, and you can see smart people blogging about this already, like many people that use OpenAI are using it for free relationship advice and things like that. are they ever going to pay, right? And I saw someone posting this recently about like, if you look around you, and including people like I pled guilty here, like how they use YouTube. Like I put on some background music on YouTube and then I'm annoyed by the ads, but I'm not buying YouTube Premium. This tells you, and someone wrote like, this tells you everything you need to know about B2B. Yeah, I don't know like what Sam Altman thinks about his business projections there. Yeah, I wouldn't be so enthusiastic. I think they're still going to stay around, right? And it's like with the .com bubble, like we still use eBay and Amazon, and like they grew so big, and like of course everyone uses the internet and shops there, but that doesn't mean that all the domains that were bought for so many millions back then and then were a complete flop, that isn't a part of history. So we're just going to see a big cleanse where basically overvalued, overhyped stuff is going to disappear, and like where actual value is created, that's going to last. And sure, yeah, it's going to stay around.
Well, you mentioned Amazon. That makes me think, though, the impact that Amazon had, though, is it did destroy a lot of brick and mortar stores, right? Bookstores, music stores. It just decimated them. Downtowns are emptied of all those stores. Well, in Europe, we still have a handful, but in a lot of places, I mean, it just decimated downtown. And the old concept of downtown, you go downtown and go to 3 or 4 shops, but those shops don't exist. You just have a mega shop, or you have Amazon, right? So I think there are societal impacts. So I don't know, Christian, if you want to talk about how is there sort of a trickle down effect there too in terms of AI and this hype and where we're going to go with it from 2025 on.
I guess I'm totally aligned with Max in the general opinion. I very recently read an article that I thought was really great about this not being a bubble but a wildfire, and it's going to be the cleansing burn that enables the new generation to grow from it, and the big trees, the sequoias, will survive. And I really like that one. And
that is a good one.
If we take the AI bubble and maybe also economic situation in general, especially here in Germany right now, it's going to be tough for the next years. But whoever survives that is going to be a lot stronger, and the AI products that will have survived that, they will really provide huge value, and then we'll see that what the next generation of products will build on top of that.
So I want to just switch gears for the last 10 minutes of the discussion and talk about the real world in terms of customers and AI. So when I created this podcast, my friend Rob Ferroni said you should do a thing on AI, and I said nobody's going to listen to me talk about AI, and no customer's going to tell me what they're doing with AI because it's all confidential and all that kind of stuff. However, vendors like you guys who are on the bleeding edge, who are doing like awesome stuff that people didn't even imagine several years ago, are certainly coming into contact. I mean, you just mentioned Bob's, but we don't have to mention any customers by name. But when I think about this problem of data access that you mentioned several times, Christian, I think about a spectrum of digital maturity from 1 to 5. And I think 1 is like, I'm still using email and Excel. And 5 is sort of that industrial metaverse on steroids with adaptive digital twins that are completely agentic and autonomous. Basically like Kim Stanley Robinson's Red Mars, and the train that builds itself, eating the regolith and building the tracks, and robots repairing themselves and all that stuff. Well, I don't think anybody's at 5. I don't think anybody's even at 4. I think most people are between 1 and 3. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe you guys have a different opinion. So first of all, first part of the question is, where do you see your customers on that spectrum? And the second part of the question is, when people start using AI, when these customers start implementing different solutions, do you think there's a ripple effect, or do you think it stays in the bubble? Like people are still skeptical and they're like, well, no, I don't need to change and fix my data silo problem because, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? So I'm just wondering what you guys have felt from a customer perspective. I'll let you go first, Max.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I just want to share one thought, because I was under this illusion earlier when we started our company, and we had worked with a couple customers, but not so many, and I wasn't aware how important company politics are and siloing when it goes to enterprise, right? And if you have a marketing department that has no idea what a 3D file is or a CAD file, right? And you could do amazing things with that, but they don't get that data, and the data is not in the right form or shape. Is that going to change, right? Is like politically, is it going to change? Unless there is a transformation on another level that breaks up these silos, but that's a different story. And as long as that doesn't happen, the end-to-end dream, that's always something that, like, I think when you start off with a startup, or like investors also like are very quick to just make up these scenarios. But what are the requirements, not only on the technical side, but also on the organizational side, political side, incentives, right? Like, are all incentives aligned? Are really people going to push towards that end-to-end and so on? And that's, I think, the far bigger problem than anything technical. And I don't have a definitive answer to that for sure. So I'm just pointing out, I think this is probably an equally big roadblock, if not the bigger one.
The OCM problem, the organizational change management issues.
Yeah, I see it the same way. I think from the numbers, somewhere between 2 and 3, maybe, depending on the department. And I think it's an organizational topic, because what we have seen a lot now is that each department has its budget and does its innovation independently, which seems totally crazy. With these ideas, we had a case where people even told us that for the initial things they're doing, they would keep IT and engineering out of it because those people make it complex and slow. So the question is can that be a foundation for success then at all? I think if you have these first initiatives implemented successfully, there definitely can be a ripple effect, and it can maybe be the drop that helps people to really decide to break up silos, etc. But we're not seeing it yet.
And do you think that's a fact? Well, could it also? There's the fact that the company is using like one of the huge monoliths, right? The two, or let's say the big three. Is that what's holding them back? Because you've got SAP data over here, and I've got either Siemens or Teamcenter or 3DX or Windchill, and these don't really communicate. And then I've got CRM and all the other data. Is it more a fact that I've got this monolith, whereas if I have more open interfaces and I'm using smaller, more agile companies, it might be more easier to coalesce the data into something?
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think if you now have to decide on which monolithic platform you're going to put your AI initiative, it's going to be siloed to that domain. So as long as you're not able to kind of mature from that, build something you need on top of it with other technologies, it's going to be really difficult.
I don't know if you guys have heard that expression, but I really like I think he's actually a German professor, Yusef Husman.
Yep.
He said this nearest source of truth and single source of change. I really like that because it's true. We're never going to get agreement between an ERP and a PLM on the truth, because they both have different unique views in the world.
Yeah, we actually worked with him some years ago at Mercedes, where he was defining this like federated data layer before he switched now to Neo, I think.
Yep.
He's
brilliant guy.
He's strong there. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to see him at the Sim Data show. Very, very good. It's been really great. I really appreciate you guys' availability today. Do you have any closing thoughts about DGG or about Threedy or about AI in general before we go?
I mean, just from my end, we didn't talk much about the convergence of like workflows with like AI for marketing imagery.
Oh, okay, CGI, which is a DGG thing, right?
Which is a completely different topic. But that's my closing thought, that there are some interesting things happening there, and I'll be happy to talk about that another time.
Absolutely.
So I'm quite optimistic that like things will evolve in very interesting directions, and we'll see a lot more momentum around 3D, even with the help of AI in other areas that can even help to break silos. But it's going to be a department by department effort, basically, not cross-functional from day one. That was my last thought then. Yeah.
Actually, it makes me want to ask another question, a quick one, but more of one that actually has come up a lot of time. Like, I get calls now because I've been on LinkedIn a lot, and a lot of younger people are coming. If you say, Fino, I'm in engineering school and I don't want to be written out of my job. What should I work on in order to become a better engineer that's relevant? Would you guys have any advice? Like one quick little advice for these guys are in school or grad school, and they're looking at AI and trying to figure out what they need to focus on to be more to remain relevant.
Do you want to go first, Christian?
I mean, if it's about becoming a developer or let's say AI-enabled product manager or however these roles going to look like in the future, I guess it's going to boil down to really do the hard work and understand what's underneath still. So you
The
can
real engineering stuff.
become the human in the loop in the future world of software development. And in general, I guess for us regarding the last statement there, we think that 5-10 years from now, using 3D data anywhere in your work life at our customers will be an absolute commodity. And we really think that the next generation also of hardware will enable these kind of mixed reality interactions, where we now have, I think, the next wave of companies with a lot of funding, maybe building for the US military, but then at some point enabling their hardware to the world. And their AI is going to be the glue that enables that. So I think, as you said, it's going to here to stay, and it's going to play a very important role, but maybe not in the way it does today.
Thank you, Christian. Max?
Yeah, I would just echo again what Christian said. And he said that word like a product manager. I just think like if you can become at least a small product manager and think beyond the task that you get as an exercise when you're learning to be a developer, for example, right?
Okay.
Like, oh yeah, here's a program that we already started now at a function that for each user in the database does this and this. You should learn this. I think it's really important to have the low-level understanding of everything that's going on, but you should also understand that many of these things that are very kind of quote-unquote stupid exercises of like, here's an exact description what needs to be done, now write a program, that's not going to be written by you possibly in the future. So you want to have that understanding of the context, right? And that's what a product manager has. It's like, why are we doing this in the first place? Are there other solutions to this? Can I tweak the parameters a little bit of this task so that it becomes 10 times more efficient, but still gets 95% of the job done for the user? This kind of thinking cannot be done by an AI in that way, at least not that easily right now. And I think, yeah, that context knowledge is just becoming more and more important. And so, yeah, don't be just an implementation machine. To learn that, right? Like try to understand context and creativity.
Be an engineer, be a human engineer. Right?
Yeah, exactly. We're still needed.
I think we lost Christian, but I guess we can wrap up. And thank you for attending this podcast for the people that were on live. I think we had a better crowd than usual. And next week, I'll be talking to Lambda Function and another German startup in Up to Parts, as well as OpsMate AI from ex-PTC guys, and TD Engine, which is a really exciting industrial AI tool. Thank you. Christian's back for the goodbye, I think. We lost you there for a second, Christian. I just was saying that we've got 2 more webcasts next week. I was extremely happy I really enjoyed what you guys had to say. I think I learned a lot. I learned more about the industrial metaverse. Thank you very much. That was helpful. I'll probably inform my articles next week. I have to rewrite them now a little bit. Thank you very much. Did you guys have a good time?
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, everyone in the audience. It was a pleasure.
Okay. Well, Dankeschön, and talk to you guys soon. Thank you.
Vielen Dank.
Thanks. Have a nice weekend.